is that you take someone, and I'm going to use corporate as an example.
Yeah.
Some people will say that if I'm not a complete douchebag at work, you're soft and you can't get it done. Until someone comes in and they do get it done, and they're kind and charismatic. And then it shatters the whole model. And that person doesn't know what to do. The question really becomes is what's in you? And each one of us is different. Maybe that's the way that only one person could do it. I only know how to lead with an iron fist. Threaten and be loud and be obnoxious, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Some people get the same effect by listening. And similarly, how we respond to it might be how we view the leaders.
Yeah.
And I'll give you some people operate under the model of, I'm going to just be a douche until you prove to me that I don't need to be. That would never work with me. Because by the time you figure out what that is, I'm out. I'm out. You know, some people, they will give you the opportunity. They will start you at 100. And you can go down from there.
Yeah.
And that's more my speed because I don't know a person. I'm trying to get to know them. If that's something that's in our futures. So I'm not going to color it with me starting it from a negative place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it brings up all those questions of like, the ethics of leadership are quite difficult to handle and to decide. I mean, do you prioritize justice over mercy? Like, just that alone is completely and utterly impossible to answer as a human living in today's world, which is okay. It's just a part of life. But I think the real thing that can be revealed to us is the way that we handle having these questions.
What are your thoughts, Dan? It's kind of an interesting path that we took. Started on leadership, what we think about leadership, how innovation, technology, automation impacts leadership in general. We have lots of time today to kind of air this out. And then it started off with Malachi had mentioned some stuff around the importance of kindness and the type of person you want to follow. And then I push back with kind of the reality check on how humans view leadership for the most part, especially when you look at things like government, military, and on and on. So everyone has good, valid thoughts. I'm, obviously one of the reasons why we do this is to learn from one another, and I'm thankful for that. But what are your thoughts?
On the leadership role?
Just in general, what we're talking about. And
I mean, again, it's a choice. So, are you a leader if no one follows you?
Right.
So that's kind of a toughie. So yeah, as far as that is concerned, I think that it's our own responsibility to choose those leaders. And I think that leadership can be, it's outside of leadership can be a book.
Yeah.
It can be a self-help, a mentoring thing, a coaching. So, there's various avenues of leadership. But I think that ultimately, as I stated earlier, it's really a title. So in order to carry that title, I feel that, the person who is obligating themselves to lead, again, there's a responsibility, there's an accountability. And if that person is going to be a leader, they're an impetus, they're a driving force for either a movement, a thought, an idea, a process, pick whatever you want to create as a subject matter.
Yep.
But the leadership role is, it's a title, and it's not an easy thing. I myself, I wish I could be more of a leader, all the time. I think that I'm comfortable in my skin, and I feel that the people that I love and those who are close to me, around me, we have a relationship that we lead each other. We, it's a give and take. So it's not always a leadership is, just one person or one entity and they're always the leader. The vulnerability inside leadership is also a very wonderful thing to see, because it shows complacence, it shows heart, it shows empathy. So leadership is it's a huge subject. And if I think about it real quick, my leadership stems from a spirituality. So I'm faith-based. I believe in Jesus Christ, and I follow his teachings. And I am very proud to say that there's an accountability factor in my life that I try to hold myself up to, because it keeps me from being naughty and doing the wrong things and not being a leader. Right. So, yeah, that's it.
I mean, it is quite an interesting human thing that when you do things that tend to hurt other people, it ends up hurting you as well.
Right.
That is just an interesting dynamic, a part of the human condition. I mean, to actually answer the question you asked earlier, Dad, about how technology itself is going to be able to affect leadership and things like that, I think we've talked about some of these possibilities before. Some things like how AI has the future to be able to maybe be our leader, so that we can have that kind of Leviathan over the world, so that it's not just pure anarchy. Which is a interesting idea, but then it also brings up the other questions of who's creating that AI. How do you make it so that AI isn't just the US trying to say that this is a third party, or just China trying to say it's a third party, or just the big world leaders? Like, how is this going to work? So that's a very fair question as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, obviously different people see leadership differently. And I recognize I think of leadership differently when I think about it for myself compared to when I think about leadership around me. It's interesting. It's been said that the attributes that make us most frustrated in other people are the things that we personally struggle with. So, for instance, if we happen to be indecisive, we have a hard time making decisions. If we see another leader that's indecisive, we might have a more intense response because we see a reflection of ourselves in that leader. In our leadership, we might be indecisive. So we see an indecisive leader and we go, what's wrong with them? Why can't they just make a decision? Or health. It's oftentimes that people that are unhealthy judge other unhealthy people. There's plenty of times where I'm carrying too much weight on my body. And it's funny how I'll look at people that are heavy and I'll think these critical thoughts. And I think to myself, like, that's so funny. Why would I be critical towards somebody because they have a similar struggle that I have? So there is that reality that sometimes our response to leadership around us is not based on objective reality, but subjective feelings. Also, we have a tendency to be far too merciful and far too critical toward ourselves. We have a tendency to kind of pat ourselves on the back and tell us how good we're doing and remind ourselves of all of our wins and really, really try to butter ourselves up. And then we also have a tendency, even in the same exact hour,
but
to
the thing is, Nigel just
jack
so
ourselves up and tell us, and basically you think these thoughts about what a bad person you are, what a bad thing you're doing, or how much you aren't achieving this goal, or how you did these things wrong or not these things right. And it's funny how within the same hour we can be so critical and so silly in terms of trying to make ourselves feel better. So we have to be very thoughtful about our thinking and the lack of objectivity. And I think this is something that has been interesting with technology for me as a leader. I have used technology for self-awareness more recently than I would have imagined. In terms of I ask myself, do I have any blind spots? And so I'll explain to something like a Google Gemini or a X.AI Grok or a OpenAI ChatGPT. And I'll say, hey, here's my situation. Here's my role. Here's what I'm doing. Here's how I'm feeling. And here's what's going on. What are my blind spots? And usually it'll ask me 3 or 10 questions and it'll reveal blind spots to me. And so I think to myself, wow, here's a really great case use of this automation technology making a big impact in my life as a leader, because people around me may not be willing or may not even see my blind spots the way that this technology can when I explain something to it. Have you guys asked these AI tools to give you more self-awareness? I mean, has that been something that you guys have found in your rhythms, is explaining your situation and asking for insight in terms of that way?
I haven't myself gotten personal with it yet. I don't feel a need to be into a therapy with the AIs just yet.
Sure.
That's just me.
No, I mean, I think there's reasons for that.
I think that if I'm going to maybe look into something like that, if I'm having an issue or something that I'm going through, if I was to check it out, I would probably do a YouTube or something, and then visually see a human as they're talking about. That way I can actually connect with whatever the issue is, and I don't know whether it's good or bad, but I'll connect more with it because it's there's the human component there that's actually talking. So it validates whatever it is I'm looking at. Oh yeah, they're talking about it too. They know how I'm feeling, or the context is bringing it to home for me. So
yep. Well, everyone that's listening in, thank you for your attention. We're glad to have you with us. We'll be back in just a moment here at Beachside Tech Talk, 1340 AM, KOMY, home.
Been a long journey.
It has. We had the idea for Attention Live. I ran it by you the fall of 2017, and it's gone through many different prototype product iterations.
NFTs were even a thing, not to mention NFT NYC.
It was, it was before CryptoKitties at least hit.
Yeah, they weren't using that term because we were throwing different terms around.
Remember, we did our event, Twitter's headquarters, November. The future, what was that event called?
Future of blockchain.
That was, something like that. And I remember CryptoKitties just hit, and I was fascinated by this concept that you can create digital assets that if you brought two together, it would create a new one. I thought this is like a whole other way of seeing blockchain integration, smart contracts, cryptography with tangibility.
Yep.
Now, you are the chief of ethics at our company, Attention Live.
Yes, sir.
You know why I think it's important that Attention Live has a chief of ethics with our ambition to have billions of people use our technology. Why do you think it's important for us to have somebody that is leading ethics at our company for the sake of our partners and our
clients?
I
think as Elon Musk just said that, right now with AI, we are creating the world's most powerful tool ever. And we're creating the Gutenberg, we're creating the nuclear bomb that can turn itself on. Right. So I think ethics has always been important. I think now more than ever, it's so important that we embed right in the foundation of this, not just a desire to not do evil, but to do righteous things.
Yeah, I love that. When you think about, you have 4 children.
Yes, sir.
When you think about your kids' generation, what they're walking into, all the automation that's coming, I often say there's only a few things that humans will do in the future. They'll either promote things, they'll create things, they'll teach things. What is the future that our kids are walking into? And how might Attention Live, as a technology platform, a decentralized approach for content creators and their communities to flourish, how might that play into the future?
When I think about my
children?
kids, the things they're facing right now, like the challenges facing them are really astronomical. I mean, we know children are facing higher degrees of mental illness than they've ever faced in history. And I think the way we interact with social media is not the driver, but it's a huge piece of that. And everything's changing. So the most important thing they need to learn is how to learn. And we want to empower them. Like the core issue we're solving is ownership of content. And with that becomes privacy. And I think we as adults, it's on us to create a better ecosystem to interact with each other because the current system is so toxic.
Yeah.
And we are positioning Attention Live to be right at the core of that.
Finally, there's been a human experience for millennia of elders blessing people. We're going to be creating video content we're going to create hundreds of video interviews, hundreds of tokens for the speakers here. And you, Ted, are the elder of Attention Live. So why don't we end this by you just blessing the people that watch and listen to all this content?
Well, I bless everyone who's watching this content and every creator that's going to be creating this content both today and in the future using our tool. May this be a tool to enrich humanity, to solve the biggest challenges, and to make the world a better place.
High five.
My name is Ian Utilli, and we're here at 1340 AM KOMY, Home of Schoolhouse Radio. We got Nigel coming in from the East Coast. I'm here with my brother Dan and my son Malachi. And
Hello, party people.
Hello, radio. And today we're talking about leadership, the impact that innovation and technology makes on leadership. Most of the time we talk about things like AI, Web3, robotics, automation, and it certainly is impacting the way we function in our leadership capacity and the way that leaders that are around us function. And certainly we can see it all over the internet, the way it's impacting everybody else that we don't know, just the humans of the world. When you think about leadership and you think about kind of how we look at leaders, let me ask you guys this question. If you're looking at a leader, let's say it's a politician or a business leader, and you're trying to determine what you believe about this leader. Let's say you're looking at, something that you want to invest in the stock market, and you're looking at the leaders of the companies that you're considering buying their equity. How do you make a determination on who a leader is? How do the three of you go through the process of leveraging technology to basically get some objective information about a leader? Because the problem today is that everybody's saying everything. Their fans glorify them. Their competitors demonize them. There's just everything that has to do with media and news seems to be bent toward getting you to be hyper emotional. So it's never like moderate news about people. So how do you guys go through the process of making decisions on your determination of a leader?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean,
The thing is, it's never going to be perfect.
No doubt.
You can't ever figure out everything about someone or figure out all the truth about someone because we live in a dynamic world. You could say that almost everything was recorded. I think I saw something that said, what is it, that we have like around 7 cameras on average that see us every second or something like that. But basically saying that we constantly are being recorded. And yet still there's this massive factor of you just don't know.
Are people actually looking for leaders though? Or is it just it's a big hype system that we jump on board? Because if you are looking for a leader, or if you're following someone that's sort of saying, I, not a submit, but I agree with this, or I'm part of this, or I follow this. And maybe people are hesitant to follow a quote unquote leader because of impact or recursive actions, or they don't want to tie themselves to a leader. Maybe people don't want to admit that they want to say, I'm a follower and that I look up to someone as a leader. I mean, kind of, a little bit tough love talk here, but do people want to be led is, I think, my real question, because, you can find out any information, you can look up something on someone who interests you or something, but does that affect you? Do you think about them the next day? If you're following someone or that's claiming to be a leader or whatever, you're paying attention to what they do and you're implementing their processes somewhere in the inside of your life, that's having an effect on how you live. So how many people that you follow or that is considering that you are led by that actually has an impact on your life? Or is it, I'm saying 99% of someone that I would consider I follow or I watch or is a leader in their area or their field, I don't think of them as a leader in my life. It's just sort of an entertainment thing, or maybe it was food for thought, but the next day I'm not thinking about
them as your leader.
Right. And I wonder what they're saying today. I need to get with them because, I want to know what they're saying today. So,
if you're not getting paid to work for somebody, I do think that Americans have a tendency to not attach themselves as that is my leader. We've had obviously a lot of documentaries about cults. So we've seen a lot of the ways that cult leaders do things. There's no doubt that most large religious organizations are led by cult leader personalities. Even business organizations are led by cult leader personalities. So there's certainly some hesitancy in terms of an American mentality.
Right. I'm just saying, and then how much do you really vest your thought process or your life into that, whoever you're considering a leader, you know?
Yeah. It's so easy to idolize in today's world. It's interesting how we constantly are seeing other people online that we've never seen in our entire life. Constantly. And yet we can sometimes consider them as our friends. What? Like, how did that become the word that we use? It's so fascinating to me to see the patterns throughout humanity that just show themselves in slightly different ways based off the culture context, the geographical context, the innovative context with technology. That is such an interesting thing to me. And I think the leadership part of humanity is something that will always stay the same to a certain extent. You'll have different things that sound different. Like, yeah, your headlines are going to use different words, but there's still going to be the same feelings. We're still going to have the same reaction to something that says new AI system comes out versus new iPhone just comes, or no, not iPhone, like new different type of phone. Yeah, those are like 15, 20 years apart, but it kind of has the same reaction internally. And that's just kind of an example of how it's different time, different context, but it still gives that same emotion.
Nigel, you want to jump in? We all want to hear what you have to say, Mr. Gratitude Champion.
Gratitude is great. It's a wonderful thing. I'm grateful for each of you. I'm grateful for this topic, actually. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of meat on this bone, but I think leadership by example is the best.
It's the one that pays off the most. That's the one that that's the one that actually shows itself with bona fide, description. It's proof in the pudding. It's rubber meets the road. It's proof case.
Yeah,
it's not just talk. So I love that, Nigel. Definitely, 100%. That's, if you're going to pick a leader, if you're going to pick something or a lead subject, or it doesn't have to be a person, it can just be a movement. That is where you'll lean a lot of heart into it.
Yeah.
So,
Nigel, you posted on
one.
YouTube, you said, name one impactful way we can nurture and support better leadership. And I think, we have to acknowledge that if culture and society demanded or nurtured better leadership, that we would probably have a different conversation today about our interaction with leadership. There's a hesitancy to even be a known leader today. When I was Malachi's age, I obviously had very, very strong leadership skills and entrepreneurial skills, yet I resisted being a quote unquote leader until I was in my 30s. I just basically wouldn't acknowledge that I was a leader, because being a leader was kind of, to me, wasn't a thing that you strive for. Leaders more or less had a bad rap because the culture of the day was not nurturing and supporting better leadership. It was just pointing out and criticizing every bad thing that leaders did. Therefore, there was no appetite to become a leader, because if you became a leader, it means that you were just going to constantly be criticized, poked at, prodded, questioned. And it's like, why would I sign up for that? I'd rather just not be a leader. And that's a real reality.
That's what I was saying about that accountability and stuff. It's and you're going to hold me. What if I'm deciding to lead a movement or people or teach or a classroom, and I get no success? I got these people who are listening to me, or I'm leading or guiding in a certain direction, and I'm not going anywhere with them. So what kind of leader does that exemplify me as? So.
Right.
I mean, can I kind of run a little hypothetical here with you guys? If you take someone who, say, is a leader that goes by completely ethical teachings, or not teachings, being a leader, if that's their leadership practice, by always prioritizing mercy, always deciding to be as helpful as they can, that might be something that has all these different ways that couldn't work. Now every other world power knows that they can take advantage of you. That's an interesting point. But do you guys think that this is a possibility that could work in some context, or in a way that, is there a way that our society can transition to something like that? Or is this just completely impossible? I just want to have a little dialogue about that.
I think it's all possible if you open yourself up to it. The example comes in. So, real, true life example is we're all in this space having a conversation. And the example from a leadership perspective, if someone was to consider us for a leadership role, is that we can actually accomplish this. It's the doing. We can sit in a room with 3 others and have a conversation, varying perspectives, and get on. And as small as, and that might be a low bar, I think it's a high one, but it's a demonstration of what it is. So someone looking at you, Malachi, is going to say, well, if I have a position that requires you to sit and speak with people, I don't have to guess about your capabilities in that role. I don't have to guess about how it is you would do that. And I'm going to give a super specific example for business people. When I was hiring a team at an investment bank, there was a question I would ask everyone who came in. Most of the people were sharp, super smart, some smarter than me, but a lot of them wouldn't do the work. And when you're working at an investment bank and dealing with traders that are trading 10 million at a clip, you don't have time to be above doing certain work. So we would ask people,
not if you want to keep that job, right?
Right.
Well, some people have, a particular feeling about that. So we would ask them, so if someone's machine broke, how do you feel about, just going down to the basement, the sub basement, 3 floors down, picking up a monitor and putting it all up? Some people would be like, I have no problem with that. Now we did it, no problem. But some other people would say things like, well, I didn't work this hard to be crawling around under desk or whatever the case may be. And they were out. They did not possess the willingness to even do that.
Right. What, Dan, you mentioned you follow Jesus. Jesus is your leader. Obviously,
that's the one that I'm comfortable pulling out of anything in my life.
If someone said, "Who do you follow?"
Right,
you're gonna be like, "It's Jesus."
It's
not Trump. It's not Biden. Right. It's not this pastor.
I'm going to my spiritual realm. Yeah.
Right. It's not this business leader or that business leader. Right.
But I'm open ears to anything, and I listen to lots of things. But I trust myself, and I talk to God a few times a day just to check in, making sure that
I never stop. That's how desperate I am.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm hoping that those things will align, both sides will align, and then that fits into my life, and then I'm having a good feeling about it. And so I will continue down that road for the day, because every day is new. Even if you're building a process or a project and it's taken you years, you're still at that, whatever day, pick the day. And that day was in a building, in a process, and it was different than yesterday, and it's different than tomorrow. So we are living in it, and picking that leadership is very important, because your future depends on it.
There's no doubt that billions of people believe that Jesus is still alive, from a spiritual perspective, and the whole thing of him dying, raising again, being seen by 400 or 500 people from what the history books tells us, and even non-Christian historical literature will say that. Nevertheless, I want to ask this question: when it comes to leadership and leaders that we may want to learn from, what's your take on a dead leader, someone that can no longer make big mistakes, no longer let you down, no longer do something that catches you and other potential influenced people off guard, compared to a living leader? So, for instance, how much easier is it for us to learn from someone like a Winston Churchill or a Teddy Roosevelt than it is for us to learn from someone like J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio, as an example. Like, these are living leaders that are in positions of power today in America compared to former leaders that were in positions of power a couple generations back. I think that a lot of times we ask questions from AI, and we're turning to now technology to help lead our decisions. And a lot of times the AI is pulling from things that it has learned from all the data of leaders, right? You'll have AI give you quotes of Teddy Roosevelt, AI give you quotes of, Churchill. You probably won't have it give you quotes of J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio.
Yeah.
And I think even the technology understands that there's a certain level of safety when it comes to looking toward leaders that have come and gone, compared to the potential risk associated with looking toward leaders, promoting leaders, quoting leaders, talking about leaders that are alive. Because how often do humans make a little mistake that then tanks their reputation? Then all of a sudden, if you're the guy that's talking about this gal or this guy that you follow, and then all of a sudden it comes out that, whatever bad thing that you just got caught with, and then you're like, what a bummer. I associate myself with that word.
I attach my wagon to their hitch. What was I thinking?
Yes.
I think that that's a good point, but there's a difference there that's can't put them both in the same box, because one is living and one is not. And the living side, it's like we don't get to really judge that yet until they're gone. And then the people who will look back on those who lived and were leaders at a particular point in time, then the judgment or the summary, it will come out then. But talking about a living leader is really tough to do, because you don't know, just like you were saying, you can praise a living leader right now, and you got to watch out what you're saying, because you don't know what this person is going to be doing in the future with their lives. They can have a different thought process. They can change the way that they're leading, take that leadership and turn it and do a complete pivot and do a fork in the road. So, and then you don't agree with that leader anymore. So I think that the ones that have passed on, they're pretty solidified. They're a static thing. They're set in stone. So it's easily that once someone's gone to look back at their laurels and maybe what they have produced or what they did in their lifetime, and then have a definitive, I don't want to say judgment, but an outlook that you can follow.
Yeah, you can still have different inaccuracies or different just changes in thought, even if they're dead or alive, but it's completely different in the way that works. The way that it works if someone is dead is just a historical inaccuracy might happen. Maybe Winston Churchill said it instead of the. Like, that's just something that doesn't really matter that much. Or he could have said something completely different, like France versus Germany. If you get that word wrong, the whole context changes. And so that's just an example of some kind of historical inaccuracy. That's more of like an academic type thing that can still completely affect everything, but not to the internal emotional extent that a real life leader can right now in today's world. If someone says something that turns out to be completely out of context, and you say, oh, look what they said, but then turns out what they said was completely wrong, that's really going to affect it now, because the people around you all have as well an emotional tie to it. Not all the people around you have a current emotional tie to someone like Winston Churchill.
So on the thing of historical leaders, one of the things that you hear oftentimes is history is written by the victors. So one example of George Washington, which people may find surprising if you don't know a lot about George, there's a lot of great things, there's a lot of strange things. This is a strange one. He was very, very thoughtful about his brand and his reputation. He was known to always have a fresh change of clothes with him, and he always changed into brand new fresh clothes before he went into a town to really present himself. That's not that big of a deal. What's a really big deal is he lied in his journals. So he knew that people were going to take his journals more serious than his men. His men would write, we came upon the Native Americans and we killed them all. And Washington would write, and there we were resting and we got attacked, but somehow we made it out alive and none of us died. And it's like in those little tweaks where Washington makes I was a victim, but I rescued my men, compared to I was a victimizer and I brutalized and murdered a whole group of people because they were not, whatever reason I had. And so this is also a thing where when we look and ask AI, hey, what would Abraham Lincoln tell me about my situation? It's like, okay, well, Abraham was the victor. And of course I honor him, but I'm just saying the narratives that we're told about history is told by those that won. We'll be back again in just a moment. Thank you for joining us here at 1340 AM, KOMY, home of School of House Radio.
You see, I believe that nobility is likely the most important characteristic of any human being, whether that human is an athlete or a business person, whether they're a host or a KOL, no matter what role you're in government, in nonprofit sector. See, nobility is the most important characteristic of anyone's life. Being a valiant person, being a kind person, being loving, being faithful, being long-suffering, having grace toward others, being forgiving, forgiving yourself. The noble characteristics are of the most important characteristics a human can ever have. And you cannot be too noble. You and I will never arrive at perfect nobility. We must pursue and chase down nobility as though we are a hunter going after something that will feed our family. There's nothing more important than nobility. However, if you're only nice, kind, loving, noble, gentle, humble, meek, if you're only thoughtful and put others first and selfless, if that's all that your life is, the likelihood of you actually getting things done and accomplishing great things and building a legacy and having your children's children talk about the great exploits of your life is very low. You see, it requires a certain level of savagery to be an extraordinary human. Now, what is savagery? Savagery is when you become an unstoppable force. It is when your ambition and your drive, your tenacity, your confidence, your commitment is unstoppable. Nobody, no organization, no government, no nonprofit, no business, no father, no mother, no son, no daughter, no amount of money will stop you from accomplishing the goal that you set out before you. That, my friends, is savagery. Obviously, if you are only savage and you are not noble, you will blow out your community, you will ruin your relationships, you will likely end up drug addicted, in jail, suicidal, divorced. That, in and of itself, leads to a very, very difficult life. Just like nobility, in and of itself, leads to a very, very soft and maybe an effective life. And the reason I took time to make up that dream, to tell you a funny story, to start our time by getting your attention, is to tell you I'm here to push you. You see, in my dream that I made up, I didn't stay in the pool and let the sharks eat me. I fought the shark. I grabbed the snake by the neck. I bit the sea lion. I made it through the pool. And when I was at the edge of the pool and the man comes up to me and says, "You want my money? You want my business? You want my daughter?" I wasn't interested in those things. I nobly responded with, "I don't want what you have to offer. That's not why I'm here. I want to know who pushed me." Now, if you listen to me for the last 5 minutes of my talk right now, I'm going to invite you to a new life where in the future, you might tell your grandkids, there was this guy one time on October 11th, 2024, who rode around on this
electric dragon. And he pushed me. He pushed me to think about being more of a noble man, more of a noble woman. He pushed me and he challenged me and he told me I had permission to be savage. I've been all over the world. I'm friends with lots of world leaders across the sectors of government and business and entertainment. I have the joy of speaking life into people. You see, part of my identity is that I am an encourager. I literally take my courage and I put it in somebody's soul. I am giving you, you noble man, I am giving you, you savage woman, permission to go further. Be more noble. Be more savage. Be unstoppable. Find that beautiful balance of humble confidence. I'm now going to transition my talk into what type of futurist are you with my last 3 minutes. So if you become this noble, savage human, you become this righteous, unstoppable force, then what do? What do you do when you're unstoppable? I would propose to you that what you do is you start to manifest the future that you want. You see, for many years, decades, centuries, and millennia, futurists, spiritual people call them prophets, those people that talk about what's going to happen one day, they were historians. They looked at what had happened the last 10, 100,000 years. They said, based on history, I kind of get the sense that this is where humanity is going. What we've come to understand about the ability to manifest is that most of us are not historians. Most of us are not looking at data and making predictions based on what has been. Rather, the type of futurist that we are is we're the visionary kind, the manifesting kind, the kind of futurist that says what could be as though it will be, with faith that it could be, and action to make it become the thing you imagine. In the sacred scriptures, shared by the Christian, Catholic, Jewish, and Islamic faiths, talks about how this unseen, mystical creator of all things created. It says he spoke. He said, "Let there be light," and there was light. For those 2 billion humans in the world that look to Jesus Christ, Jesus of Nazareth, as their spiritual leader, how did Jesus do miracles? How did Jesus raise the dead? Lazarus, come out! So what did Jesus do? He wasn't a historian. He didn't tell Lazarus that he would come out of the grave based on historical data. He manifested a man raising from the dead. He told a dead man to rise. How did Jesus turn water into wine? He said, "Tell everyone to bring me water." He told somebody to do something with the faith that he would manifest a transformation of water to wine. And then he prayed, and it was done. And finally, how are you, how am I going to create the life that we want to live? If we are community leaders, how are we going to balance nobility and savagery And how are we going to find ourselves comfortable in the position of being a visionary that manifests what could be, what should be, and then follows through to ensure that it will be? So again, I'm here to push you. I'm here to make you uncomfortable. I want you to feel like you can be more noble, you can be more savage, and you can create the life, the career, the finances, the family that you know is possible.
Welcome back to Beachside Tech Talk here at 1340 AM, KOMY, home of Schoolhouse Radio. My son Malachi just said something interesting. He said, sometimes our conversations during the breaks are more energetic and intense. So, that's interesting. I wonder if there's a certain level of restraint that we feel when we are live on the air. I know on the air we're not allowed to curse, although we don't really curse when we're off air either. But I guess I'm more thoughtful. Not often. I keep all my cursing in my head.
You like mentioning this kind of just brings up another thought to my mind of how with like world leaders, if they're all just sitting there talking like, and then this happened. And then this happened.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt.
By the way, this is happening in the world. Like that doesn't attract people. What attracts people is, guys, like that is what people want to listen to because it's so anxiety driving.
Shock drama. You said what?
What do you say? Because you never know what they're going to say. But if you know what someone's going to say, then it's less inclining to listen.
What did I miss?
So we're talking about leadership today. I just ended with a story about George Washington. So let me open a story about George Washington, and then we'll jump into our continued conversation. How does innovation and technologies impact leadership in our lives, in the leaders around us, in the global leaders? Back to Washington. A lot of interesting things about George Washington if you've never researched the man. Washington was known to be shot at a lot and not die. It was said that he had a lot of bullet holes through his clothes, and either the bullets miraculously, which a lot of people had believed, didn't harm him, or somehow the tail of his coat and the arm of his jacket, the bullet went through the edge, but it didn't hit his body. Regardless, it made him kind of a myth. And you see this with Kevin Costner in the movie Dances with Wolves, when he goes out there on his horse and just kind of gives himself up to the firing squad, and they all fire at him, but somehow, some way, he doesn't have a bullet hit him. And that had happened multiple times with Washington, which caused a lot of people. I wasn't there.
So
I wasn't
crazy.
there, but it caused a lot of people back then, that belief that had happened, that there was something divine or a destiny upon Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that's interesting is Washington would threaten his men with death. He would tell his men, if you turn around and run, even if it's 10 against 1, if you turn around and run, I will shoot you in the back of the head, and I will tell your family I killed you because you turned on our country, on our republic.
That's why through history, a lot of guys die and they say, tell them I right to my home and tell them I died with honor.
facing the enemy.
That's right.
And Washington would say to people, if you turn around and you don't face the enemy and you try to save your life, I will kill you.
Right.
And I will dishonor you. So that's kind of a weird one about him. But one of the interesting ones is when they signed the Declaration of Independence or the Bill of Rights, or it was one of the major documents. And I think there's 13 colonies, and basically a couple had left the room, and now they're down to like 11, if I have the story correct. And now like 4 more are getting angry, and they're about to leave. And basically Washington was just kind of quiet. And finally 4 more or something like that are about ready to go. And he slams his fist down the table and he just yells at him, "You signed the document now. It's good enough. That's it. We're moving forward." That is, Washington's a complicated leader. We weren't there. We don't know what really happened, but we do know that they wanted to make him king. And he said, no, we don't want kings in America. We want to have people term out. So that's a great sign. We know that from what I had shared earlier, Washington had an overwhelming desire to have a good reputation, not just while he was alive. Hence, he always brought a new, fresh pair of clothes every town he went into, but also when he was gone. He would lie in his journals and make himself look better than his men would make him look or make them look. Washington was obviously bold. He'd be willing to go out into the firing line like a Kevin Costner movie, Dances with Wolves, and take bullets and basically trust that he couldn't, quote unquote, couldn't be killed, and he wasn't. Yet he would turn and tell his men, if you turn your back on us, I'll kill you. That's a very strange thing for a leader to do. Yeah. And ultimately, it was Washington that demanded that they move forward with the colonies and start things off. And it didn't matter if it was the best, it was good enough. And sometimes good now is better than best never.
Yeah, it's better to make something than to try and make the whole thing perfect and then you don't end up having anything.
You do have to wonder what it would have been like for Washington to face something like the CNN, Fox media machine. You have to imagine, what if one of those networks, let's say that the liberal networks loved him and the conservative networks hated him, how strange might it have been to be told stories about, Washington, he did this, he did that, he's our hero, he's the devil, right? And it's like the type of stuff that leaders today deal with, not just with being slandered, criticized, ridiculed, questioned, but also deep fakes being made, straight up lied about, photos being tweaked, different quotes being taken out of context, and deception being fully acceptable for people to try to ruin leaders' influence and authority. And so we definitely live in a very strange world that someone like a Washington or a Lincoln did not have to deal with. What are your thoughts on all this, Nigel? I see you leaning in.
I was hoping you would stop because you kept giving me more material. So here goes in the order as I remember it. One, you've made a particularly compelling case that Keanu Reeves, based on pattern and practice, owes Lincoln a significant amount of money based on using his IP in both The Matrix and John Wick.
Right.
So if you got
what was the IP?
All those bullets.
Oh, the bullet.
No, they didn't miss him. You don't remember this? The suit was made of Teflon what's it called?
How about John Wick? Yeah. The suit, the business suit, was bulletproof.
Yes.
Yeah, twice.
Pattern and practice. He'd pull up his collar and take bullets.
Exactly. Remember this.
So
he wasn't dodging bullets; he was taking them.
Hey,
he dodged them. He dodged them in Matrix, though. I got to give you that one. That was
moment.
Like bad copyright law. Like, you need a better attorney. Okay, so the comment on Fox and the news. Yeah, I don't even think that's a thing. Dude, people are walking into cannon fire with a flag and a drum.
It's so different than today.
Words are bothering me? Not at all. Not at all. Nothing you could say to me would make me feel anything. I'm drumming. And literally cannons are being shot at me. No way. So I think he would be fine.
I mean,
it wouldn't even be a thing.
The whole propaganda thing, they totally had their own propaganda. That's something that even I know now, that they had their whole own source of propaganda, but it's completely different than what we have today. Because what we have today is the kind of thing that you can pull up on your phone, your TV, your anything, on your radio, and it takes you like, what, 60 seconds? And bam, there you go. Now you have something that's taken out of context, very anxiety driven, and is going to make you want to know more. Like,
Right.
what are they going to say next?
Yeah.
And it's, in a way, probably the same back then. That maybe they hadn't formulated the thoughts, like maybe they hadn't said the sentence, anxiety driven is actually going to make it happen better. Like maybe they didn't know that, but they definitely did it because we're humans.
Right.
And they were very, very propaganda oriented. I remember hearing about how during, I think Alexander Hamilton and the guy that he didn't like, the two of them, they had some bad propaganda towards each other. And just these guys, like, they're coming together to make something. They're meant to be allies in making the country that is now probably the biggest and most influential country in the world 250 years later. But yet they're sitting there arguing and wanting to kill each other over these little details that, I mean, when you really think about it, end up affecting the entire course of history after them. So if anything, I'm kind of thankful that they took it so seriously, because it just helped our Constitution and the things that made it to actually be quite good in a lot of ways. But it is interesting to have that little predicament of like, is it good that they fought and that they were so violent and so inherently animalistic and human? Because yeah, maybe it helped us now. Maybe we have a better constitution, a better government, better laws or basis for it. But is that the best way that it could have been done? You never know.
In the Book of Eli, Denzel Washington's movie, Gary Oldman was the bad guy. And Gary Oldman, his character in that movie, the Book of Eli, he really, really wanted to get his hands on some sacred scriptures. And his character basically said, if I can just get that book, I can control the people. Like, I have the water, that helps. I have the guns, that helps. I have the this and that, and I let my people do what they want, and I got a lot of power, a lot of authority. But if I got that book, then I can say this line and that line, etc. It makes me think about my gratitude that leaders are not the only ones with AI tools. You know, just like the Gutenberg printing press was made, there was already a printing press, but Gutenberg made a typeform printing press. And the team around that innovation were Christians. At least that's what I understand from history. And they did it so that the average person could have access to the sacred scriptures, because they didn't any longer want only the Catholic father to have access and only access in a certain language.
Like, they felt very strongly on the truth of it, on delivering something beyond themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
An accountability factor to live right, or providing sacred scriptures or secret information. It was the most valuable thing they felt at the time.
And now, arguably, the easiest way to get access to the scriptures is to ask an AI tool. Hey, what is this passage? What is the story? What is this verse? What is this letter? What is this epistle? What is this prophetic book? What is this part of the Torah? What is this part of the gospel? What is this in this version, right? Because there's like 3,000 versions just in English.
Looking at the way that information is able to be gotten now, it's so much easier than it was in the past, when you used to have to go to the Catholic father or the Buddhist person. Like, that becomes the kind of thing where your religion is completely based off of their interpretation, the way that they see it. But now, for the past, I don't know, a few hundred years since we've had something like the printing press, it gives this ability to now be able to formulate our thoughts off of the actual core knowledge, because we now have a pretty good ability to find it. And especially with AI.
I think the thing that the reason why I brought up Gary Oldman's character wanting the Bible, and the reason I brought up the Gutenberg printing press, is you can see in the past that people were motivated to decentralize the access to the knowledge found in the sacred scriptures, and that the future our apocalyptic world showed a leader that already had full control, full power, full authority, that recognized if he could just get his hands on that would transform his ability to lead. And then coming to today and recognizing that the only people that have AI are not leaders, and how dangerous that would be. Imagine if the only person that could have access to AI in Santa Cruz County was Fred Keeley, the mayor, or was Renee Schleffer, the guy that has the largest community church, or was any individual person, or was Raymond, who runs Community Bridges. And I like all three of those guys. I like Fred, I like Renee, I like Raymond. But I would be very disappointed if there was one person that had access to the AI.
Gatekeeping.
And then what would everybody else do? They'd basically be dependent on, well, what is this person? What questions are they asking? What prompts are they writing? This is what I want to know. Can you ask the AI this? And so how fortunate are we that any human that has internet connectivity and access to a device, which you can just walk into a library and have a free access to a device and internet connectivity, you can go on and you can talk to these AI tools, and every single person, doesn't matter how tall or short you are, how skinny or fat you are, doesn't matter what color your skin is, what age you are, what you do for money, how much debt you're in, how much money you have in the bank, it does not matter. You have access to these tools, and these tools can give you information that you don't have to be dependent on some other person or organization to give to you. And I do recognize that the current state that we're in is a state of grace where humans, by and large, have access to the same knowledge. Therefore, we are protected from the type of situation that we see in a movie like Book of Eli, or that we saw in the past 500, 1,000 years ago, where it's just a small organization, a small number of people that have all the access to the knowledge,
They
therefore have all the
gatekeep
power.
all the power of the book. It was for years and years, thousands of years. It was known
millennia.
That the written word, and not just scripture, but the literacy,
just literature in general.
Correct. Being able to speak and communicate was such a powerful thing that powers that be at those times would keep it away from the normal population, because they feared that if these people would learn more, that they would not follow us. They would not want us to be their leaders anymore, and you'd have an anarchy or an uprising.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
Gatekeeping again. Fortunately, we're not living in that world today, but it does make me wonder, we've got billions of ding dongs running around with, endless information and data.
Right.
So we got to, be careful what we make.
Well, it's interesting getting a unique perspective where we can look back on time. If you put yourself in the shoes of someone who lives in a time where all of the ancient scriptural texts are in Latin and only like 5 dudes in your town know how to read it. Okay, so now you're this person. You have your ordinary life that is probably fine with you, but you don't really know what these say. You're really just trusting what the leaders say. And I bet in the leader's perspective, they're like, oh, this is good for the people, because then I can make sure that they don't go crazy. They don't get too much knowledge, and then they don't know too much, and then all this happens. And it's a thought that plenty of world leaders have today too, as well, with, well, we don't want them to know this because then they're not going to have our support. With the wars that happened just in like the 20th century, the 1900s, a lot of those wars, they would not really tell people everything, or they would kind of skew it because then they get more support from people. And I mean, yeah, you could make the argument that that went better in your favor because your war went well. But is war going well the end objective? And so looking at the way it is now, we all are saying something similar to, yes, we're glad that we all have information now.
Right.
But I bet that in that time, people weren't unsure that that was the obvious answer.
You start to wonder, though, with everything you said, which is 100% accurate, people have access. But how many of us are actually using it? To the potential that it could be.
That's to be determined.
Using it, well, yeah, I mean, and robbing ourselves of the opportunity or the democracy of that information. Because I think that's, at this time and where we are, that's going to say a lot in a not so distant future.
Yeah.
Because if we're cheating ourselves of the opportunity, it's kind of like, I read a lot when I was younger. And over time, when you're young and you start reading, those little age appropriate books in terms of knowledge, kindergarten, whatever, first grade, you quickly run through them.
Mm-hmm.
So you start reading more advanced books.
Yep.
You start being exposed to bigger, different, vocabulary. For me, I've always been fascinated with the language, the words. So I read a lot of cuss words, inappropriate words. But in the context of a book and learning, it's a very different experience.
Mm-hmm.
There was no desire to run around cussing. That wasn't it. But I did understand what those words meant, and I had a wider vocabulary as a result. So I never saw that as a detriment. The same way I don't see it now with AI.
To take a small tangent, you were talking about how you were really interested in reading and you wanted to get all this knowledge and you wanted to understand more. And I mean, I have an 8-year-old little brother now, and he loves reading. It immediately made me think of him. Nathan is constantly reading books. Mm-hmm. Sometimes he kind of throws a fit because he wants to read. It's so cute. It makes me so happy for him. But he's still in the phase, being an 8-year-old, of where he just wants to read fictional books that don't have any meaning to them. Which, yeah, of course, that's not fully true. They have meaning.
Diary of a Wimpy Kid is true peak literature. I don't know what you're talking about.
But Nigel, the question that I want to ask you is, when was it and what was the catalyst for you realizing that you wanted more knowledge, you wanted to understand this more, and you wanted to actually start to gain things that had a lot of value and importance to your life in the future?
Well, not all of it was just straight desire. I had parents that were very motivated for me to have a good education. But what they did that I found was so unique, and I think it applies to any parent-child relationship. Whenever there's interest and passion, you don't have to, you can shape that while it's there. Here's a book. You like this book? The reading itself will perpetually sustain. Because eventually, you'll read all the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books fast. And I run out of things to read. So you just start picking up whatever is handy. And before long, you find things that you're interested in. So my son played soccer when he was younger. And he read a lot, and they had contests in school that they banned him from. He was like, you got to give somebody else a chance to win. But that's because I kept giving him soccer biographies. So kids are reading really small books, and he's reading novels on his favorite soccer player. I didn't do anything special. I just provide an outlet. That outlet isn't always going to be there. And it's the same thing with adults. If you give someone that's interested in something adjacent to it, there's a strong possibility that they're gonna run with it. That's why the adoption and us talking about these things and sharing this information, each one teach one, I believe is so important.
Agreed.
Yep, I agree. We still got about a minute and a half. Any other thoughts, especially on the topic of, how do we look at leaders that are alive compared to those that have left? And how does that play into the way when we turn to the AI tools, or let's say you're still using Google, or maybe you're old school, you're using Yahoo. Either way, when you turn to technology to give you answers and you're asking questions and you're basically turning to the internet to be your leader. Hey, Yahoo, Google, ChatGPT. Hey, Alexa, Siri, Google Assistant. I have a question. Be my leader and tell me.
What guides us to trust
these
them?
Tools don't have a soul. They're just resourcing what leaders have said in the past or what leaders are saying today to give answers. And so kind of, as we wrap up this segment and get ready for our brief commercial break and then for our final segment, I think it's just important for us to recognize the difference between looking to tech to answer questions, looking to living leaders to answer questions, and looking to those that have, passed from this experience. Go ahead, Nigel. Why don't you wrap us up as we come to a close?
Trust. It's a single word, trust. I think we have to ask ourselves this question. Why am I more comfortable asking an AI versus people that are supposedly close to me that know and bridge that gap? Maybe ask that question to the AI, probably be a better question. Just a thought.
That's right.
Super true.
I like that.
All right, my friends. We will be back again in just a moment. Thank you for joining us here at 1340 AM, KOMY, Home of Schoolhouse Radio.
So we're having so many great NFT and metaverse conversations here in the C-Space studio, but the first question that comes to mind about this is like, okay, everything can be an NFT. You can make any piece of content NFT, sure, any clip, any moment, anything. What about the basic laws of supply and demand here, right? Like if the market is flooded with, if every piece of content ever is an NFT, what are they actually worth? What does that mean?
Well, you have to think of NFTs as a receipt with rights. Okay, so your house has a deed or a title. That's the receipt. The right is you get to live there, and the car has a pink slip. Or you buy a ticket to an event, and it has a seat number, right? Yeah. So it's non-replaceable or non-fungible. Yeah. It's a receipt with rights. You bought that. You have the receipt. You get to sit there. So if everything becomes an NFT, the question about supply and demand is going to be on utility. What's the usefulness of this NFT? And what is the right that comes with this NFT? And is the right used up as soon as the NFT is kind of checked off that this thing's been done, like you go to a concert? Or does this NFT have ongoing value and utility, like a car, where you can drive it until you're ready to sell it? Yeah. And so I think it's a much more layered and complex situation, and people in the market will figure these things out over time.
So where does the NLP part come in? That's natural language processing,
That's right,
which is a part of artificial intelligence. So where does that come into it?
So the first step was to make sure that people could call up the content with their voice, using their voice devices.
Oh, interesting.
So
okay,
saying to Amazon Lexi, I'll call it Lexi so it doesn't fire off all your systems, open attention live. It says what channel do you want to listen to, EN Utility or CES, and then it brings up a 24/7 continuous stream of content that can be interrupted any time. And then the vision ultimately is that people can say, hey, Google Assistant, open attention live, and it says, do you want to listen or go live? And that you, in your car, can say, I want to go live. I don't want to be a content consumer in my car. I want to be a content creator. So you call up attention live. It says, do you want to go live? You say yes. You start talking. You create a podcast, and NFTs created against that. And that ultimately is a big part of our vision for leveraging NLP, is that people can just talk to the machines and either listen as a consumer or create as a podcaster.
And so you're here at CES in part for a panel called Voice in the Metaverse. Yeah. Voice and the Metaverse, excuse me. What does that mean? What is that all about?
So I just did a talk. I did the final keynote at the Voice Summit on December 8th, so recently, less than a month ago. And at that, I was telling all of the executives at Samsung Bixby and Microsoft Cortana, those that are building the greatest NLP machine learning technology. And I said, listen, these rebels that are creating the Web3 world, they don't realize it, but they're totally dependent on the voice tech industry. So the metaverse doesn't function with thumbs on glass. The metaverse doesn't function with fingers on a keyboard. It's not like we have eye reading and we're going to have these headsets on, they're going to know our thoughts. No, you have to use your voice. So it doesn't matter how decentralized you are or what your decentralized autonomous organization is, or that you're the Web3 rebel, anarchist, renegade, taking down the Web2 centralized world. That's fine. You still probably need hardware like a Microsoft Halo or a Facebook Oculus. Yep. You also still probably need to leverage some of their UI, UX, and ultimately you're going to have to leverage some of the existing infrastructure around voice technology, which is why today we have the event Voice in the Metaverse at 3 p.m., bringing together some of the thought leaders around what does voice technology and metaverse development look like, and how these things work seamlessly together.
Welcome back to 1340 AM KOMY, the home of Schoolhouse Radio. My name is Ian Utilli. We're here at Beachside Tech Talk. We are live. Hello, radio. Hello, World Wide Web.
HE double hockey sticks O.
We appreciate those that are listening. If you want to watch us, you're welcome to do so at
The word welcome.
IANUTILE on Instagram, X, YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook. Go ahead, son.
You guys
The
sound
word
like you
welcome.
went at the break and took a little. What'd you guys have to drink? Little juice or something?
It's just exciting.
sweet juice,
It's
huh?
exciting to talk to the party people, and it's
Okay.
our last segment. So it's time for the climax. This is it. This is the fourth and last segment for the day,
Yeah.
and we're talking leadership today. That's the talk. How does innovation and technology make an impact on our leadership individually, the leaders around us, and those that lead that may not have a direct but maybe an indirect impact on us? Okay, son, you were going to say something about
Yeah, sorry to cut you off. I was saying how the word welcome, I'm all into words. Etymology is so cool. But the word welcome is saying, well, come. You are welcome. And I just thought that's an interesting thing. I wonder if the way that word welcome came to be was because people were saying, well, come, or if it was just that we came up with it. Like, I wonder how that became to be. An interesting thing about AI is that now I can figure it out so easily.
That's true.
While I've been doing my school, there's plenty of words that are like kind of confusing. Like, I think one that I saw today was plebeians, which is like the lower class in Rome. And I was like, where does that word come from? And so I looked it up, and it gave me a pretty good answer right away. And that's just a cool thing that I can do now. It'd be a lot more difficult to do it just with using an original source like Google. Or if you go even before that, it's like, dude, there's no way I could just go to the library and find that in time. So it's quite amazing the world we get to live in now.
I agree. Nigel, it's amazing to have you, the gratitude champion, with us.
It's so,
what do
we're
you
so
have
lucky
to say, my friend, on this topic? You are welcome to speak, and we desire to listen.
What you said about words, I agree, Malachi. I love words.
you know what I love? I love the gratitude champion. He's so gratitudeness.
You said this, and I immediately started laughing to myself and now out loud, because I think about how humans just find ways to make mischief. We break stuff. We're good at it. And with words, we would go look up a word for the expressed and explicit purpose of weaponizing it in what I could only describe as a desire to ensure that the only reasonable response is violence. That's how serious it is. I'm going to say a word to somebody and they're not going to know what to do, and they're going to just lose it. And they weaponize words.
Yeah, crazy.
Not a fan of that.
Well, that's not what our leaders do.
Oh, of course not.
Do that. That's not what they're supposed to do. That's what I meant to say.
Well, they're not leaders. Like, our leaders don't do that. But there's people who have been elected to office that do it all the time. But on a more positive note, especially for us believers, not that I'm excluding anybody, but I feel like this is an important point worth making. Faith is something that I feel needs to be practiced. It needs to be active. And one of the areas where I feel we could all do better is acknowledging that we're God's masterpiece. And the very second we allow a human to in any way even remotely dream about thinking about defining who we are, our faith is being tested. And I'm just going to talk spicy, and sometimes that leads to someone's jaw being tested. But I'll leave it there.
Yeah. The thing is, it's so easy as a human to constantly think about yourself, to constantly be wondering things about yourself. But then once you just acknowledge that there's so much that's bigger than you, and whether that's a faith thing or just a looking at the world, and then you kind of just acknowledge how much good there is, because yes, there's plenty of negative that you could look for. You're always going to be able to find negative, but you're also always going to be able to find positive. And if you just acknowledge the positive, it will appear to you as if life is only positive to a certain extent. And it's very worth saying that that concept makes life so much more enjoyable. That's one of the core philosophies of my personal being that I am so lucky that people like Nigel have shown me.
Well, thank you for saying that. I mean, you think about our unique promise of value, whatever that may be, and whether we're abased or abounding, it's good times or bad, we have a purpose. And as long as we acknowledge that, I feel like we just do better. We become not necessarily impervious, but we're a lot more resilient against other humans who choose to weaponize words, who choose to blaspheme against God's masterpieces. Because we all have different gifts. And if we see them in each other, I mean, even if you think about leadership this way, I think we talk about leadership as if it's the person and not the skill set.
That's good.
Like each of us have leadership qualities that here's the evidence of that. We're here on this show due to the leadership qualities of your father in some regard. Now, is he the perfect leader? No, but none of us are.
Right.
But there are clear leadership qualities that led to us being in this room, and further to that, being able to have the types of conversations we have, and the camaraderie and the love and all the other things that go along with it. But that came from leadership qualities, not leadership as a person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely a strange sense of responsibility when you as an individual have leadership skills and have influence. I would always say that, I became a good salesman talking my family into going to the restaurant I wanted to go to and the movie I wanted to go see, and talking my friends into going and let's play at this beach and let's go skateboard over here. And like, that's a lot of influence and leadership and communication kind of come with the people you're closest with. And then if you hone these skills, you can take it out and about. You can take it to the workplace. You can take it to the faith communities. You can take it to the athletic, arena, etc. But it is interesting because, we are in a society that is a lot of tension around titles. On one hand, you have people rallied up with signs saying "No kings," which we've never had a king here. I understand what they're trying to communicate, but so again, they're saying like, we don't want anybody with this authority or title or leadership over us. I get it. And then those exact same people will worship their favorite musician, actor, actress, athlete. They would kiss their shoes. They would wash their car with their toothbrush. They'd do anything for them. They would treat them like a king or a queen. Yet they're out holding a sign saying "No kings," because they're trying to make a statement. And so there's like a lot of intense energy around authority and title. Good Times is a local paper. They just had their 50th anniversary of their paper. And so they chose 50 people that made a profound impact on, everything here in Santa Cruz. And so in that, one of the 50 people that were chosen was Renee, the senior pastor and has been for a couple of decades at Twin Lakes Christian Church in Aptos, where our boys have gone to school for a decade. And we've been a part of that community off and on for quite some time, our family. And, the whole thing in the good times was about his consistency and having a large community and how much good they've done in the community. So the article really focused on like, hey, they do almost as much feeding people as like a Second Harvest food bank. Like they're doing all this around this need and that need. And it was encouraging to read. This last Sunday, Renee shared all about toxic leadership in faith communities. And he shared stories of how leaders spin themselves out of control. And rather than walking and acting in the way of who they say they follow, Jesus, they start to act like controlling, cult leaders. And obviously, eventually it leads to things like cults. And so it was quite a bold and courageous, message that Renee gave. He is basically calling his profession out and saying, here are some of the really negative and detrimental things that happen in my profession, the profession of a spiritual leader. And then he talked about some of the things that he's done and they have done there to try to fight that. And one of the things he said, you may notice every time I come up and anyone here comes up, we always say, I'm one of the pastors here at TLC. So what he's trying to communicate is he's trying to say, I don't have the second, third, fourth most influential people on staff carry their weight around like I'm the head of this and I'm in charge of that and I'm the senior over this. And he's also saying, not directly, but indirectly, I am the most senior person here. I'd be the chairman and CEO of this organization. But when I stand up and introduce myself, I just say, I'm one of the pastors. And what he's trying to say is he's trying to take the pressure off by not making it about a title. Mm-hmm. But obviously it's not about a title. It's about the heart of a leader. So the thing that's most important is Renee's heart in not wanting to bulldoze people with this big, heavy title. That's what matters. And then the symptom of his good heart is that he says something like, I'm one of the pastors here, instead of I'm the senior chairman, CEO, call me Reverend Father, hallelujah. So he's not doing that. He's taking a much more mild approach to it. And I think that there's a lot going on when it comes to leadership right now. I know that Elon Musk, when he made his business card was, I think, chief of techno or something silly like that. That was his title. So people have, lightheartedness approaching it, not trying to make it such a big thing. I mean, imagine someone like an Elon Musk. Could you imagine if he tried to, it's not just the money in my bank account. It's not just the brilliance of my mind or my ability to lead world, class people, but I'm the CEO and founder of this and this. If he tried to push with the title, but what I see when I try to see the best in Musk, what I see is a man that is just trying to accomplish the goals of his responsibility. And, who cares about the title? Call me the chief of techno for all I care. I just care about getting things done. And so it is interesting that in the past, there was a lot of weight around what degree do you have? Do you have a doctorate? Do you have a master's degree? Did you at least get yourself a bachelor's degree? Where'd you go to school for that degree? What's your title? There's a lot of weight around your title at a company. You started off as a junior. Are you now a senior? Are you going to elevate yourself to an SVP? You ever going to actually be a president? So there was a lot of weight around position, authority, titles. And it does feel to me like today that's diminished. Another thing that's changed a lot is the propensity for leaders publicly using curse words. I feel like 10 or 15 years ago, you would not find a public figure using curse words publicly. It was so rare that you would. Now you have Trump say the F word from time to time. in news interviews when he's upset. You certainly have had him say it in private meetings that maybe he didn't realize were going to be recorded. Not just him, Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins had a documentary come out called I Am Not Your Guru on Netflix. He must have said the F word 100 plus times. You have people like Gary Vaynerchuk, who we've talked about here, one of the top entrepreneurs in America. He says the F word every sentence, and other things. And so it's interesting how over the last decade, I personally have observed that titles have become much less focused on. In fact, leaders seem to take a specific desire to diminish their title. And then rules of how you're supposed to act in civil society, that's kind of out the window. And now all of a sudden it's totally fine to just use the full broad English language to communicate. And so you see these changes when it comes to leadership and expectations. And I do wonder what's going to come next. And I do wonder the impact of what comes next based on how these different technologies roll out to humanity. At least my perspective obviously is here in America, capitalist, developed nation society. It's going to be different than other places in the world. But what do you guys think about how things have changed for leaders in that regard? What do you think about my thoughts when I'm talking about titles are less important, rules are less important, people are more prone to just kind of present themselves in a mild way, and they're also prone to kind of talk in the language of the day, if you want to put it that way. Nigel, you're leaning in. What are your thoughts here?
I think some of that on the part of some of these leaders, I don't know this, might be more self-serving than we might think.
Yeah, you might be right.
It's a way to avoid scrutiny.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I'd like to see more of is transparency. I'd like to understand why certain things are the way they are, and leaders be comfortable speaking about that publicly. And rather than worry about any particular label, I would love to see actual help for the everyday worker or whatever the case may be, rather than complaining about a problem, which we do so well. What I don't see we do as well is lean into, here's what's happening and here's what's going wrong. Here's how you fix it. Here's how I'm going to help you now. And call me if you need something else, or call this other person if you need something else. I don't see as much of that. And that opportunity is definitely there. So I feel like there's a bit of that.
Leadership is so complex. Just so complex. Being a human is so dynamic. Everything is constantly changing around us. Every leader is constantly dealing with a different situation based off where they are, based off the world events that are happening, based off what their followers believe of them, based off what they want their follow. Like, I could go endlessly on about the different indicators that affect what a leader says. I mean, it's perfectly reasonable, like what you said, Nigel, to say that, yeah, it could just be a really internal thing that the leaders are trying not to cuss, because it's not what people do now. It could just be that the reason Gen Z doesn't really drink alcohol anymore is because they have other drugs that they want to use. That's a very fair point. But it also could mean that the world is changing, that people don't really want to take drugs anymore. That's also a fair point. Now, these things aren't really provable, but they definitely are fair statistics to look at. And so when I am trying to look at all these things and trying to come up with an inference of how I should handle my opinions and where I should give my attention, I want to make sure that I always keep in mind these more subconscious things that still affect people compared to only the conscious things that are said and verbalized and put into a thought that can be communicated to another. Because just like I've said before on the show, I think I looked up a stat one time that the body language of someone affects, I think it said over 50% of the information that you get from them. Just their body language, just the way they interact. It's why having Nigel here was such a joy, because Nigel's body language makes the room feel so much more optimistic and joyful. That's something that can totally affect everything.
Right. Final question for us before we wrap up for the day. We're almost at that end moment. if a significant leader came up to you and asked you, hey, what technology should I lean into most right now? What would you say?
Easily Web3. AI is already going to happen. That's not something a world leader needs to do. It's just the Web3 part. Because if we let AI ramp up too quick and Web3 doesn't get there, then now deepfakes are extremely scary. You don't know if anything is real. But if you get good Web3 technologies that get easy access to people and also that are easy to understand, simple UI, simple user experiences, where instead of it being, yeah, I see something, but I don't know if it's a deep fake or not. Yeah, the Web3 technologies exist, but I don't know. Instead of it being something that, yeah, you have to go all technical. I have to go into it to find out. It's just there. So I think that I would tell a world leader that Web3 is the future because it has so many useful things for the everyday consumer.
Thank you for joining us here at 1340 a.m. KLMY. Homeless Schoolhouse Radio. We'll be back again tomorrow. All right. So, internet, there's, it's a little bit complicated. Be on the radio and the internet at the same time, run all this craziness. One of the things I can't do is I basically have to be on mute during commercial breaks, which is why I play videos. It just makes it easier. And it's why when the video ends, sometimes we're like sitting here without any talking for 15 seconds or 45 seconds because the video didn't quite make it to the end of the commercial break. But thank you for joining us, Aaronette. And Nigel, thank you so much for being with us once again. Every day is a joy to be with you. Tomorrow, yes, of course. We'll talk about identity tomorrow. And then you and Dan will take the Friday and rally. I think me and Malachi are going to do the show from the house on Friday and talk to AI. I think we're going to do a segment talking to Grok and a segment talking to OpenAI's ChatGPT and see where that goes. I don't think I'd want to do that on the radio just in case things go a little wild. Web 350, thank you for the claps. We applaud you, my friend.
Thank you, Web 350.
And Nigel, I'm loving you right now. I'll see you tomorrow.
See you then.
Same gratitude time, same gratitude hour.
Amen.
Okay, bye everybody. Peace.